Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Summer for those who are new. Today's video, we are doing another haircut tutorial and it's gonna be sort of a combination of two previous cuts I've done put into one. It's gonna basically be a version of my shorter layer haircut and the curtain bang combined into one. So here, the mannequin's hair that I'm using today is a little bit longer than the hair I did my shorter layers on. And then the curtain bangs I'm going to be doing are gonna be more of just a nice face framing, bringing this up a little bit, but not quite as short as a curtain bang. And then we're gonna just be doing some really nice, fun layers all throughout for a lot of movement, a lot of body. So let's get started. Okay, so first things first, as always, we're just gonna get her sectioned off right along her ear to separate the front from the back. We're gonna comb all of this forward and get it clipped away. Do the same on the other side. And then I am only going to be cutting her layers. I'm not really cutting her perimeter just because that is not what is really important here. I'm gonna be showing you guys how I do the layers. Again, this is gonna be a combination of that shorter layer haircut and when I did the long curtain bang, which I will link both of those below. But so we're gonna be adding in some shorter pieces to her. As you can see here, we've got a lot of length going on. So we're leaving that length and we're gonna be coming in, creating more layers. So right now, her current shortest layer is falling kind of right in that middle area. So we're just gonna be bringing it up just a touch more for some extra movement and fluff everywhere, and then blending in the sides and doing those nice face framing pieces where they're not gonna be quite as short as those curtain bangs, but a little bit shorter than your traditional face framing. So what I like to do to separate for my layers, I'm gonna come right down the middle to sort of set my first guide. And then with the hair being long enough, usually I just like to push it directly over the shoulders. You can use a clip if you choose to, but usually with longer hair, it stays in place pretty well. So we've got that comb forward and we're gonna just start our layers now. I always, again, like to work with the fine side of my comb, going back and forth between the top and bottom. Okay, so we've got, like I said, her middle section is taken out to set our guide and both things are pushed forward. Try to do about no more than an inch for your guide layer. The cleaner your sections are, the better you're gonna be able to continue to see your guide as you're cutting. All right, so we're gonna come in, fine side of that comb. It's down here, we're gonna just pull straight out with it. Let that bottom fall and cut. And I'm doing a little bit more of a point cutting into these layers to keep them nice and soft. I don't like too blunt of a layer personally. We're just gonna move up the head, sort of pulling out straight from each sort of roundness of the shape of the head, and then straight up at the top. And then at the very top, we're just gonna lightly twist our fingers. This is what I do in my shorter layer. Let all that bottom hair fall out and then just lightly snip that last little bit of hair. And then we're gonna move into our next section. Keep pushing all that hair forward to keep it over the shoulder. And then at this point, you can break your guide into two parts to keep what you're working with in your scissors nice and neat. Coming out, letting that bottom part fall and cut. So these types of haircuts I'm doing, that shorter layered along with that curtain bang, typically work best, I feel like, with a little bit more medium to thick, fuller hair. You can do it on finer hair types. You won't look quite as full as that shorter layer and that curtain bang do compared to somebody with more medium texture. But if your hair is super thin, a lot of layers is not gonna be a haircut that's ideal for you. I did just do last week a video on what is my favorite haircut for fine, thin hair. If you're open to removing your length, it's gonna be a good video for you to check out. It's a one length haircut And it's just a very nice haircut to make those finer, thinner hair types look nice and full and thick with some movement still. So I would check that out if you're falling into that fine, thin hair category, as this might not be your most ideal haircut, the one I'm doing today. And we're just continuing to round the head through the sides, pushing that hair forward. Again, we're letting all that bottom hair fall out because we're not cutting the length here. We are just reshaping the layers. Straight up here. I can see my guide here. Cut along. And then again, I like to just slightly twist my hands here and just cutting into that very top layer just ever so slightly to add that extra pop of layering. Now that we have this whole side of the head done, her right side, we're gonna come back to that middle section and we're gonna push all the hair back over on the right side and work our way into the left side. I'm gonna take just a little bit more from my guide here. And again, if you wanna clip this out of the way, certainly can. Keep it more neat, or you can always just push it over their shoulder. I can see my guide through here and cutting. All right, so now that we have her back layers done, what I'm gonna do is come in and sort of just do a little bit of cross-checking. So I'm just gonna bring everything out starting in the middle. I'm not as precise at this point with my sections just because we've already cut it, but I'm just gonna kind of come through, pull it out, and go over any sections that kind of stick out before drying. And then I always go over it when it is dry to just make sure everything lies up. Sometimes the way the hair lays after it's dry is a little bit different. It's more lived in looking. I'm very big on always making sure to blow dry your clients. If you've been doing a client's hair for years and years and you know how their hair falls, you can sometimes let them leave wet and get away with it. But if it's a new client especially, or it's difficult hair or curly hair, always blow dry, go through, check it, and then you're done with your haircut. I feel like a haircut's never done unless it's looked at dry. Right there, got all that little hair there to cut out. And then we're just gonna come straight across her top. I'm gonna bring everything straight up. And just these little corners need nipped into just a little bit. And again, I'm point cutting at all my layers. I'm not doing any hard blunt lines. right there on that corner. And this other one is probably the same way. Just barely. Okay, so now I'm gonna let her side down and start blending in. Usually when I know I'm gonna be doing a lot of face framing, I will typically just do one side layer. So I'm gonna separate at the ear again and bring a little bit of the hair that was from her front section and just lightly blend it into this back. I like to cut the bulk of my face framing first and then kind of dry and see how it goes. Just because I don't like to typically cut as many layers into my sides, especially in this kind of middle area. You can sometimes cut into it too much, creating a little bit of a hole. So what I will do is, I have my side section here. I'm gonna, instead of bringing everything kind of out straight from the side, I'm gonna come back to over direct it back. So that way I'm not cutting too much length off. So you're cutting some layers, but you're not removing quite as much of the length. So that way, in case you overcut, it kind of takes out that possibility for the sides and you're able to meet it and blend. And then we're gonna do our face framing. So I'm gonna do the same on this other side in that little corner. And then we will start with her face framing. And then always respray if need be. And then again, we are coming just barely into that side section. And we're gonna be bringing everything kind of back towards us, not straight out. Back and twist while you're pulling back, and then just cut that little amount of hair that sticks out. Alrighty. So for her front, like I said, we're leaving it longer than that curtain bang I did. The curtain bang I did is like kind of right basically in her cheekbone area, where currently this piece is all the way down a little bit past her chin. So what I'm gonna do is bring it up to be right in at her chin area. She'll still be able to tuck it behind her ears, but she'll have the pieces falling out around her face, similar to a curtain bang when her hair is pulled back, but she will be able to pin these back easier being right in the chin versus the curtain bang. You gotta clip that back if you want it out of your face. So I like to start off in smaller sections, so I will take just a little bit of hair around the face and bring that out. Just taking my clip to put the rest of this out of the way. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. Like I said, we're just gonna be bringing this up to right at her chin. So I'm just gonna comb her hair down, and I'm not gonna pull it really taut in the front just because I wanna make sure I'm not overextending, and then the length shrinks up when you let it go. So I'm just gonna bring these two pieces to set my guide. All right, so I'm combing down these two pieces right along her face here to set my guide, and I'm just literally gonna take these two and snip. So we are right at her chin, and that's my guide, and now I'm just gonna blend in the rest. Cut just a tiny bit more on my guide so I can see a little better. I'm just gonna point cut here. I'm not holding any tension with my fingers. They're still bent here. And I'm just gonna lightly point cut into a little baby angle to form a better guide. There we go, much better. Okay, so we're bringing down our first section of our face framing. So I can see my guide here, and I'm just gonna come in and sliver down into it. All right, so we're gonna take our next section, and we're just gonna keep meeting as we go down. So I've got my guide here that I'm gonna start with, and I'm just gonna come down, keeping my scissors at an angle, only moving that thumb, and work my way down as I glide through the hair. The reason why I like doing the sections for doing my face framing is you're able just to really make sure you're not overcutting and you have more control rather than if you take one big huge swoop. If you overdo it, it is all gone. I feel like I say this stuff in every tutorial that sectioning is key, especially if you're just starting out. So I'm basically taking her section all the way back to her ear parting, and I'm gonna keep going back to get into this back section. So I'm gonna blend in her length back here to her length in the front of the face framing. We've got this last little tail bit down here and cut. All right, and then to blend in her back, I've just now brought her down and I'm gonna pull her hair from this back section. I'm just gonna comb everything down, and I've got just a little bit in here to glide through to make that meet into her back. So typically with the heavier face framing, you have a nice kind of, I don't like to call it a V shape forming, but it does do more of a curve because you're doing a little bit more face framing in the front. So now I'm gonna match up on the other side, and then I will show you guys how I like to do my cross-checking for my face framing. Typically on the other side, I tend to go up with it rather than blending down. So whatever your hands are most comfortable with, do it that way. Sometimes, you know, people can come in and sliver this way as well. Just whatever you're comfortable with. I like to play around with both. Play around with both if you're unfamiliar. Just, again, do smaller sections at a time to give you the most amount of control. And we're coming down, I can see my guide down here, angling my scissors and cutting. All right, and then to blend in that side to the back, remember we're just letting it down. We're coming right in this middle, angle those hands down, and nip any little hair that is left out. Again, there is gonna be sort of a nice little swoop that falls, not in quite a V, but in that softer angled shape. So now to check my face framing, I'm just gonna separate again the front from the back, do that on both sides. And then this is how I always do all of my face framing to check in every video. I'm gonna start from this back section here of her face framing. So do it like almost you're gonna do a layer. And then I'm just gonna bring everything forward and do a light twist. And the hair that's left out in between, I'm just gonna slightly cut into that. So point cut that to blend it. And we're gonna do that up through the section. Just gonna go all the way up. So come into that top layer, moving your angle up and twisting. And I just do that, working my way to the front of her face framing. So come forward, twist, all that hair there, cut, forward, twist, cut. And as you are moving up the head, I sort of overextend the hair to come across their face. So that way you're moving up with the shorter pieces of the face framing. And then on that very front, I'll just take a separate section, leave out that back area. And then we're gonna really twist on this one, going across the face, twist and cut. And then overextend, cut. We're gonna do the same on the other side. So I'm gonna stand behind so you guys can see. I typically would stand in front. come in, twist this little hair here, out. Work our way up and across. Come forward, twisting, just that little hair there. Again, you want to come over your client's face, over directing, so you're really making sure to get into those shorter face framing pieces around the front of the face frame. Just barely this last little piece. And then my final cross-checking I like to do for the sides. We're gonna spray down one last time. I'm gonna come right at her ear for that front piece. We're just gonna lift everything up, bring it all the way over, and any little hairs that might be poking out, sometimes you have them, usually you don't too much at this point, but I just like cross-checking a lot. This will be my final step, and it just really makes sure everything is lining up nice and even on both sides for your face framing. That's looking really good. Barely some hairs there. And just that little guy there. When you do the angles different, your hair kind of lays and falls differently, so you're able to get something that doesn't always necessarily show the other way. So this is why I like doing this one. All right, so I'm just gonna get her styled now. I'm gonna use just a nice volumizing blow dry cream. I'm obsessed and on a huge kick of IGK's Bouncy Blowout Volume Cream. It gives you heat protection, it gives you some style memory, so it's a nice shaper for a nice full blow dry, especially I'm gonna be giving her a lot of body and a lot of movement. So I'm gonna get her styled and then we'll come back and see if we need to do any dry cutting and see her final look. Okay, so here we have our styled look, all this body, all these layers. So what I'm gonna do now is just kind of go through and cross-check everything just one more time, especially in her back layers. I'll show you guys in just a second, but she did come out really nice. Let me know in the comments if this blow dry is something you would like to see a tutorial on, so I can really break down how I work the brush. I use 2 different brush sizes too, so let me know in the comments if that's something you would care to see. Here in her back, she's got a ton of layers and movement. So I'm just gonna go in. I feel like in this middle section, she might need a little bit more blending. So again, I'm just gonna take some bigger size sections. I'm not going super precise because the bulk is already done. So that's why with cross-checking, you don't have to be quite as precise. I'm just gonna take everything out. And again, I feel like it's that middle area. So I'm gonna come out, lightly twist, and just sort of point cut into it. And then just lightly kind of work my way down with it and nip out any pieces that I might feel like are kind of poking out. And just do that all through the hair, right here in this middle. But yeah, this really, she's got the hair for it to cut in a lot of those layers to break it up. She's got the thickness too. So this is what I mean with people who have finer, thinner hair. Like I wear extensions, so I literally could never have this haircut unless I had a head full of extensions. I just don't have enough thickness, and my hair being finer, it tends to look thinner the longer it gets. So if I went in and put in a ton of layers like this, it's only gonna make my hair look finer. Like I said, check out that video I'm gonna leave in the description. That is my preferred haircut for myself. If I wanna have the most full amount to make my hair look really thick, so check that out. But if you add too many layers with finer hair, such as this cut, it's not gonna always translate as nice and thick as this mannequin's hair is. And then remember, as we're coming, I'm getting close to her corners of her ears here. I'm gonna angle my hands back still while cross-checking. I'm gonna come and do the same thing on this other side. And just right there in that little middle, not a lot. And like I said, I'm mostly just point cutting into it. And we're pulling back there in that corner. Right here, and this middle needs to go. So as you're pulling out the hair, you will see where you need to kind of nip into a little bit. And most of the time, when you cross-check while it's wet, you don't have to do as much once it's dry. And a lot of what I just did is more so just like kind of doing the point cutting to soften it up. So now I'm gonna come in and check around her face. Looks-wise, she's looking nice. I feel like over on this side, she has just a little bit that needs to come up. So what I like to do is I stand directly in front of my client and I will just pull the hair towards forward so I can see a little bit on this side here. She's got a touch more length on her one side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna come in how we were doing that cross-checking, and I'm just gonna angle her forward and nip in that area where it was a little bit longer. The face framing can be pretty tedious and time consuming, so don't get beat up if you're like, ugh, it's uneven here or uneven there. Don't beat yourself up. It's very tedious and time consuming. I've been doing hair 15 years. I don't always get it perfect on my first go around. That's why you dry cut and you style it. So you would pull everything towards you, meeting up in the middle or to wherever your client parts their hair. And if you have a side parter and you're doing this, I do in the side short layered, I'll link that video as well, kind of show you how to adjust your hands for a side part if you want to check that out. But she's looking pretty beautiful. A lot of movement, especially from the side view here. When you pull back with it, you see all those layers popping around. So like I said, the difference between this and the curtain bang I did, her pieces are much longer, where the curtain bang came right at the cheekbone. So if you're pulling the hair back, those are always falling in your face. You're never gonna be able to like tuck them. You'd have to clip them. These are long enough that you can come in and tuck around the ear, so your client will be able to have a little bit more options for playing with them. Okay, so yeah, but I think she's looking good. We've got a lot of movement. And again, let me know in those comments if you would like to see how I achieve this blow dry with all the body and bend. Okay guys, here we have our final and finished look. Again, this was a combination of my shorter layered haircut tutorial and my curtain bang. So you get to see these shorter layers on a little bit longer hair than I've done in those two previous videos. And then the difference between this haircut and the curtain bang is we're doing a little bit longer of a bang, so to speak. You're able to tuck this behind your ears. There's a little bit more versatility, but the steps are somewhat the same. Again, sections are key. Take nice clean sections when you are creating that face framing. Do nice small sections at a time to really make sure you're controlling your guide, especially if you are nervous for taking too much length at one time off. And again, remember to over direct and twist those fingers to get that little extra shorter layer on the top. And then if you care to see how I did this blow dry, let me know in the comments below if you would like me to do a tutorial on that, how I get the bend and the movement and the shape. And then I will be linking all the videos I mentioned throughout this haircut of previous tutorials I've done in the description and pinned comment. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'd be happy to answer. As always, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.